Awesome. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to this mini workshop toolkit masterclass. For the next 40 minutes or so, Katie and I are going to be walking you through 3 mini workshops that are going to help you build better products for your teams. So before we get started, we're going to do a quick round of intros. So Katie, you want to go first?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Katie, and I'm a director of product for Okta. I've been there a little under 3 years. And a little bit about me, my background is in computer engineering, but I've worked on products across B2B, B2C, and developer experiences at Amazon Music, Box, and at Okta. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, and I love tennis. I played in college, and I still do that competitively when I'm not PMing.
Nice. Thanks, Katie. I'm Nicolas. I'm the lead product designer at Okta's consumer products. So I work closely with Katie, and I've been at Okta for 4 years. A little bit about me. I have a background in architecture before transitioning to product design. And as an architect, I have opportunity to work with different firms in different projects across consumer, single family, skyscrapers, different fun stuff. Before joining Okta, I was head of design for the Human Diagnosis Project, a nonprofit medical startup looking to improve medical care for everyone. I was born and raised in Mexico City before moving to the Bay Area, and I don't play competitive tennis, but I've been taking beginner classes. Cool. Before we jump into the mini workshops, I want to share where these came from. So, Katie and I believe that magic happens when product managers and designers work together. And for years, we have been researching the best processes and workshops and have been testing these with our own teams. So, when we find something that really worked for us, we like to write it down and we publish it in our product cookbook. This is a Medium publication that you can see here on the screen, where it's full of recipes that anyone can follow with any team. And it's free, so anyone can see them and follow them as you wish. You can check it out by scanning the QR code on the screen, but we're also going to be sharing the links at the end of the session. So for our agenda today, we're going to be start by looking into what are mini workshops and why we found them so useful. Then we're going to do a deep dive into 3 mini workshops that basically build on each other. We're going to start with connection, moving to empathy, and then at the end, we're going to wrap up with focus. And then for each one of them, we're going to explain why we need them, why we find them so useful. We're going to be demoing how to use them in Miro, and we're going to share examples as well. So if someone asking what I'm going to get after this masterclass, the answer is really simple. After this masterclass, you're going to learn how to run 3 mini workshops. You're going to have Miro templates, and you can use them with any team. So at the end of the day, you should have access to all of these materials. So Katie, you want to walk us through what are mini workshops?
Yes, I'd be glad to. So, mini workshops are lightweight workshops that can be completed in ideally 1 hour and that do not require a ton of pre work. When you think of the word workshop, you typically think, wow, these are very intensive, they take a lot of time. And we started this concept because we found ourselves sitting in multi day offsites and things like design sprints, which are really fun, but they're very time consuming and they're super intensive. So we tested out this concept of a lightweight workshop over the past few years with our team, and we decided to make an official thing because it works so well for us. So first and foremost, we love mini workshops because they are super engaging and interactive, but they're also short. We found them to be the best way to get people to share their opinions and to get people talking. And this has worked much better than using a Google Doc or something like that. But again, you might be thinking, how do I actually find the time to do this? Everyone is so busy. With these mini workshops, you can only allocate maybe 1 to 2 hours max with your audience. It is not a whole day thing. The only thing is, as a workshop creator, you do have to spend some extra time upfront to facilitate discussion and make sure everybody has the right, template to be able to contribute to. But we found that that's well worth the amount of value that you get out of creating these. Okta is also a hybrid company, and so we've prioritized making this a remote first experience. It was a must for us because our team is dispersed throughout several different countries, and we wanted to make sure that you can run it when half of your team is in a conference room and the other half is still online. And frankly, the way that we got these mini workshops to be to stick with our team was to make it a ritual. We've gotten to the point where we're running these several times a month. Several times a month instead of having to do presentations or docs. By moving from this one-way communication to an interactive model using these mini workshops, we gained something very valuable, which I would say is shared language. People felt accountable because they were actually a part of this creation process. And we knew it was working when people started offering to run their own mini workshops and partnering with us on our team to help out. So with today's topic, we are going to give you a mini workshop toolkit. We've picked the best 3 workshops that we've run so far and wanted to share with you how you might run this with your own teams. So the first one is on connection. How do you establish team norms with your broader team? The second is on building empathy with your users by running a watch party workshop. And then the third is on creating focus so that your team knows what to work on next with a prioritization workshop. So what we'll do today is we'll walk you through each one of these. We're going to do live demos, and we will answer one question at the end of each mini workshop demo to engage with the audience. And so Nicolas will walk you through our first one.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. So we're going to start with the first workshop. And for this one is related, like Katie mentioned, to connecting with your team. And the best way we found to do this is by setting up team norms as a group. Every team develops ways to interact and communicate with each other. That just happens natural. But we believe that doing this correctly is critical for any team to be really successful. So you may ask, what are team norms? Basically, team norms are a set of guidelines that help teams interact with each other. And these can emerge naturally or be developed during a meeting, for example. Let's say a team launches a new product, right? A team norm that could just emerge naturally could be to gather for a celebration after the launch. Another example, let's say that the team frequently fails to deliver due dates or fails to deliver on time. So the team can then pause and formally create a team norm to set up goals each week to make sure that they're delivering on time. Now, this part is really important. The Teams Norms mini workshop is quick and can be done at any time. Even if you're moving fast, it's good practice to just pause every now and then and reflect on what is working for your team and what is not working for your team, in particular when it comes down to communicating and interacting with each other. In our case, we blocked an hour and a half during an offsite to run our mini Team Norms workshop. Now, let's go through the Miro and we're going to demo how to run it and how to use it. So here's our Miro board. So all of you are going to get access to this at the end of the session. And on the board, you're going to see different templates for each of these workshops. So we have the team norms at the top and then the other 2 following after. So for the team norms one thing to note is this link here on the top left corner is basically showing or pointing to our recipe in our product cookbook. And you can find all the instructions on how to run it and access to the Miro board there as well. So just an FYI. Now, the Teams Norm workshop is divided into 3 different sections. And the idea is to get the whole team together in a room or through Zoom or whatever tool you're using. And everyone is going to walk through this individually and then as a group. For the first section, this top white box here on the top left, everyone is going to, here you have the agenda here on the right. So everyone is going to spend 5 minutes writing existing norms that the team currently has. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to use this format where we type the norm first and then what specific thing about that norm demonstrates that norm. So for example, a norm could be celebrate wins, like I mentioned before. And basically the description could be, we stop to acknowledge a big release and we do like a virtual team event or a game. Another team norm could be over-communicate. We send out bi-weekly newsletters and align with external stakeholders. So the idea is for the first 5 minutes, everyone is going to go ahead and write their own team norms in this Miro board. Now, for the next 5 minutes, the idea is to give each one time to move all of their norms they wrote to one of the boxes below. This is going to help you understand and divide the norms in different categories. For example, some of them are about decision making, others are about conflict resolution, others are communicational tools, for example, Slack, email, whatever you use. And then the last one is about values. So once you do that, we're going to spend 5 minutes hearting the things we love. And this is just going to give you a sense of what people like the most, or which are the norms that people are more attached to on the team. The best way we've done that, or we found to do that, is you can select a post-it below in the section and just click on the emoji here and basically just add a heart. And we also have the voting tool. We're going to be using that later on. So this just gives us a good sense of what are the things people like the most and which are the ones that are most important to them. Once that's done, we like to leave some time, in this case 10 minutes, for a group discussion, just to mention which ones were like the most, which ones people feel attached to and want to make sure that we continue using. That basically wraps up the first section of the mini workshop for the team norms. Then we have the second box here on the middle of the screen, which is pretty similar to the previous one. We're going to use the same format. So we're going to also write the norm and what specific thing about the norm we want to describe it. But in this case, we're going to write new norms, like new things we want to see the team bring to the table. For example, like celebrate any birthdays, right? Maybe we don't do it enough and want to make sure we include it. So that's something we can include in this section. So like before, individually, we're going to spend 5 minutes writing all of these norms. And then we're going to spend 5 minutes moving them down to each section. So I'm going to take a pause here and I'm going to show on the right what we will probably start to look like for your team. So this is an example of something that we run with our own team. So you can see some of the blue post-its were moved down and then the green post-its as well. Something to keep in mind is try to keep the same color of the post-it. That way you know which one is existing and which one is new. And as we were doing this, we realized that there were some cluster of topics that were related to each other. So we just started putting all together in different sections, right? And that's basically how it was look like. And I'll come back to it in a second one more time. The last section is probably like the hardest, but also really important. This is where everyone is going to write individually for 10 minutes changes or modifications they want to make to either an existing norm or to a new norm. So the idea is to grab this orange post-it, put it next to one other post-it I've been wrote already, and basically write something you want to change or modify about it. For example, let's see what we have here. So there's a lot about Slack, right? Like an existing norm that we had is have Slack channels with similar names so we could all know how to find them. But there were new ones about making transparency on Slack and making sure that everyone is, there's transparency in everything we do, and there's some modifications about it. So for example, keep Slack conversations in a thread rather than putting new conversations outside. The idea is at the end of the day, you're gonna have something like this, where your team can see all the existing norms you have, the new norms, the modifications you wanna add to them. And at the end of the session, it's really important to basically leave 20 minutes for a group discussion. This is where everyone's gonna voice out their thoughts, basically say what they like or not. Oh, and I think I missed one step, sorry. 5 minutes voting. This is super important. Once you're done, make sure to leave 5 minutes to select all the post-its in your board and use the voting feature in Miro to allow everyone to vote for the top 3 or 5 things they like the most. This is basically going to tell you which are the most important down to them, for them. And that's going to basically lead into the group discussion after. The one thing I'll add is after the group discussion, it's good to leave the meeting with some to-dos. So for example, someone on the team can say, hey, this is a really important new norm that we want to adopt, and I'm going to take the lead to make sure it's adopted for the team. So that's something that you can take away out of the session. That wraps up the team norms workshop. Before we move into the next one, are there any top questions or any pressing question that we should answer?
Nicolas, do you want to take this one?
Yes. Sorry, I was looking at a different screen. How do you assure people that they don't want to get targeted for the meeting with a norm method? if I understand this correctly, basically how we ensure that everyone is voicing their opinion, everyone can participate. At the end of the day, as we started going through this workshop, we realized that people are really, this is really important for everyone, regardless of who you are, like it's really important for everyone. So naturally for us, it just happened that people started speaking on their own. If that doesn't happen as a workshop lead, you can always just ask questions out loud and just point directly to someone and say, hey, what do you think about this norm? Or can you give us your opinion or something like that? Anyway, I'm going to keep moving to the next workshop for the sake of time, but we're going to leave more time at the end for more questions. So like I mentioned before, if you want to read more about this particular workshop or mini workshop, you can find it in our product cookbook. And if you scan the QR code on the screen right now, it's going to take you directly to it. But we're also going to share the links at the end of the session. Cool. Now, Katie, can you walk us through the second mini workshop related to empathy?
Yes, thank you, Nicholas. That was a great walkthrough. So the next mini workshop we're going to walk you today is the empathy workshop, which we solved with a watch party. And this one is personally my favorite. So when we ran our own team's workshop, we established a norm to speak with our users regularly and to also celebrate wins. But we found that we were not really living up to those two norms. We would ship something and set up tons of user interviews, and we would give everyone the opportunity to sit in on these user research studies, to sit in and watch and see, how they were using our product. Surprisingly, we saw that frankly, nobody was signing up for these time slots. Everyone was too busy. And then when one person finally did, they actually only sat in on one out of the 10 research studies that we set up. And then that created bias where you were only getting, one person's opinion on your product instead of the 10 that, actually got interviewed. So to solve this problem, we brainstormed some ideas with our user research team to try to figure out how we can give better access to the rest of our team and all of the awesome interviews that they were doing. And so what we decided was a watch party. So our research team grabbed about 20 hours worth of content, and they selected highlight reels from that, so that we can narrow it down into something that was consumable by our team. What we did was we had a 2-hour workshop. So this one was definitely longer the first time that we ran it. And we collaborated in a Miro board by watching these highlight reels and reacting to that in real time. We also made it fun to hit on the Celebrate Norms workshop or Celebrate Wins to give everybody money to order lunch or popcorn or whatever snack that they wanted. So now I'll walk through a demo of what we did. Awesome. Nicholas, is it in the right spot?
Yes, all good.
Awesome. Okay. So the agenda for a watch party is pretty simple. Essentially, you have a session where you watch the highlight reels and react in real time. We spent about an hour doing this. You then have a quick break and you go into opportunities right after. This is instead of just reacting, you talk about what things you could do next to kind of respond to the pain points that were uncovered during those highlight reels. And then the next thing was having some amount of time. We allocated 30 minutes for discussion with the team. And that just recaps and lets everybody respond together instead of just reacting. And so it's very simple. The instructions for for reacting to the watch party are: there's a green Post-it for positive reactions that you saw. Maybe there was a user that made it through your onboarding flow, and you would, respond with, "Hey, that was a great thing that happened." Red would denote a problem or a pain point that you that the user encountered. Purple is something we could potentially be doing to fix that problem or double down on something that went well. And then a white or gray one is just on, do you have a question or a note that you want to say? We also love using emojis. And so we give everybody a chance to upvote other people's comments. And essentially, there were really only a couple rules. It's one idea per Post-it, and then make sure to add your initials to each one so that people can see who wrote what. And so what this looks like in practice is you have this board here. where there's on the left a link to all of your highlight reels. And so we had a category around usability, and we also had a category around pain points. And on the right, you see an area in blue for people to react in. And then after the reacting is done, you have an area on the right for just discussion. So it's very simple, but the way you run it is you just, have a link that everybody watches. You have one person sharing their screen and playing all these videos. And in the background, you have the team reacting on the right. And so you can see here, this is what it looked like for our team. So we ran a couple of sessions, and there were a lot of opportunities around how we can improve the speed and convenience of our application. There were a lot of, problems around consistency. And so everyone was able to react to that. And we were able to walk away with a shared understanding of, from this latest release, what went well and what are some things that could potentially lead into our roadmap coming out of it. I will say we've ran this one several times, and we found that the best way to do it is to not make it so long. We started off with 3 hours, and that was just way too long for a team to sit around. We then condensed it to 1 to optimize for a shorter time period, but then there wasn't enough time for discussion. And so that's kind of what landed us at 2 hours, which is enough time to react and watch the video, but also have enough time for discussion at the end. So that wraps up our watch party workshop, and we can take one question as well. Okay, so the question is, are there ever any issues with making sure that the highlight reel is representative of the range of user experiences? Is it difficult to not just put a collection of pain points in the reel? So I think user researchers, they're definitely trained in this to eliminate as much bias as possible from these highlight reels. And so, we trust our researchers, and if you are not lucky enough to have a researcher, then yes, you do have to make sure you're not just pulling out things that you are trying to get your team to hear. And so that's definitely a bias you have to be aware of, but it's definitely something we've tried to mitigate by, as you can see, we have several different sections. There are some things that went well, there are some things that didn't go well, and we try to make sure that we cover everything. Awesome. Oh, sorry, there's more slides. So again, yeah, you can find a copy of this in our cookbook. We wrote an article on this, and you can scan the QR code to learn more if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. So lastly, I want to walk you through the prioritization mini workshop, which will help your team focus on what are the right things you're going to be working on next. So on the previous mini workshop, Katie just talked about how watch parties are really important to create alignment about how our users are actually using our product and where the problems emerge. So naturally, after we ran the watch party mini workshop and a lot of ideas came out of it, everyone on the team, including ourselves, starting to ask like, okay, great, what's next? What should we focus on? So this seemed like a great opportunity to introduce a mini workshop to prioritize feedback. Something really crucial to make this workshop successful is to make sure you include the whole team. This will make sure that people don't feel like decisions are made in silos or just by a small group of people, and to ensure that everyone's heard. That said, we made it really clear that at the end of the day, PM or product management will have the final decision since they actually own the roadmap, but everyone will have a chance to share their opinions along the way. The goal of this mini workshop, like I mentioned before, is for team members to openly discuss about the product problems that emerged during the watch party. But we also learned that the best discussions came from healthy disagreements. And that was great, just basically seeing how people had different opinions and allow us to prioritize these things accordingly. Before I walk you through the mirror board and I show how it works, I want to mention a few things that coming out of it, we saw signs that this was really working. First, engineers were really excited about low effort, high impact items because they could ship something really fast that's going to have great impact on our product. Also, engineers knew after coming out of this workshop They knew which were the big rocks that were under consideration, and that helped us basically take architectural and design decisions. And lastly, designers knew what things were coming, so we knew what things were coming on the roadmap, and also PMs had clarity on which product specs were required next for the team. So great, let's now take a look at a demo of how to use the prioritization mini workshop. So this is something that a lot of you may be familiar with, the high value, low value, low effort, high effort matrix, but this is basically our take on it. I'm going to start with showing just quick instructions and a few guidance that we use in our session. So first of all, bring the ideas from the watch party workshop, and you're just going to list those down here. And you should be doing this ahead of time. Also, basically it could be whoever's running the session or someone else should have a timer, and make sure you spend no more than 5 minutes per idea, because if not, you're going to run out of time. We basically set 1 hour for this, but you can adjust accordingly. You can do a little bit more or less depending on how many ideas you have on the table.
Yeah, also, and Nicolas, I'm going to jump in and say, for one thing here, we had so many ideas from our watch party workshop that what I had to do when I ran this was pick the top 7 that would benefit from having a discussion, so that you don't end up having a super long workshop and discussing every single idea that came out of it.
Right. That's great. And also, if someone brings irrelevant topics to a table and say something that is just distracting the team, those can be moved to a parking lot. So we have a parking lot section on the right, basically saying, hey, we're also going to consider those. We're not deleting those thoughts, but we need to keep focus and just continuing moving on. Basically, the way we run it, I'm just going to show the guidance on the demo down here, is you're going to have here all your ideas on the left. And I'm just going to add a new post-it as a demo here. Let's say, I don't know, share photos in the app, something like that. The idea is we want to allow people to be able to share photos through their app. So as the workshop lead or driver, the idea is you're going to grab this post-it and just put it in the middle. And this is the middle between low value, high effort, and low effort. And at this point, you're basically going to spend 5 minutes as a team discussing about it. And you're going to notice that the post-it is going to move up, it's going to go down, it's going to go all around, depending on what people are saying. For example, engineers may say it's low effort, but someone may say, but it's also low value. So maybe it's something that we should not do it, or just do it if there's time later on. Other things like may move to the right of the board. And those are things that are low value, but high effort. Maybe engineering come back and say, hey, that's going to take a lot of time and it's low value. So basically it's not worth our time doing it. The most important ones are the ones that are on the upper side of the matrix here. The ones on the left, the ones that are low effort, but also high value, basically are things we should be working on now. We should just put all our effort to get it done now. And then the ones on the top right are things that are high value and high effort. And usually those translate into bigger initiatives or bigger projects that the team is going to be taking on next. Katie, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the one thing that I'll say is this is very hard to do in a group setting. So you will have to have one driver that will get people talking about this. And so you don't want to bias people, but sometimes if there's silence, no one's willing to kind of chime in, then you can get, hey, I think this one's going to be very high value and very high effort. Anybody disagree? Or what does everybody think? So this one is, I would say, definitely very hard to run, but if you can get to a cadence and a level of comfort with your team, it is very valuable.
And you can see here an example from our team as well. So you can see how stuff move around, and we have things that are doing now, which is great because just give us focus on what should be focusing on right now. But also have things that are under do it next. So we know what are the big efforts that we need to be focusing as a team, like the big initiatives or projects that are going to be coming after.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say is there were some tickets that after 5 minutes, we could not figure out where to put it. Some people were like, well, it depends on the solution that you pick. Sharing could have a really easy solution, but it also have a really hard one. What we ended up doing with ones that needed more thought or clarity, we put it in the don't do it section. Somebody has to go and follow up and then kind of help us make a decision next. So there were definitely some conversations like that were tougher.
Cool. So like in the other workshops that we shared, we also have recipe for it in our product cookbook. So you can scan the QR code and it's going to take you directly to it. We're also going to share the links at the end.
Great. So now that we've walked you through 3 of these workshops, we can show you now how to access them. You can go to the BeMore mini workshops link, and you can scan this QR code to get access to these templates. You can copy them and put them into your own remote workforce, remote workshopping tool, and you can get started.
Yeah, sorry.
So the one thing we wanted to leave you all with was these were all guidelines, not meant to be very prescriptive. So we highly suggest running them on your own and seeing what works for you and your team. Every team is super different. You might find that you like a different prioritization matrix and you want to use that instead. So these are all meant to be guardrails, not prescriptive.
Great. I'm going to skip this because we've shown it before. This is just a summary of what we looked at today, the 3 mini workshops. There's a link to our product cookbook that has all the recipes and instructions on how to use them. And then on the right is a link to the Miro board where you can actually copy these and use them directly with your teams.
Yep.
Great.
Last thing I mentioned, these are the top 3. So we run a lot of workshops and we'll continue to publish these in the cookbook. And so if you're interested in running more of them, then that's where you would find them.
Yes, these are 3. We have like 10 or 12 on the cookbook, so you can also access those and the materials directly from our product cookbook as well. Cool. Let's do Q&A because I know we have like 8 minutes or so.
Should we just go from the top?
I think we have one in the screen right now, so we can just start with that.
Got it. Okay, so the question is, what are your tips to conduct a workshop involving stakeholders that are not designers and don't understand design terms? Maybe Nicolas, you can take that since you do this all the time.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is making sure that everyone in your team is involved throughout the whole process. Like, yes, there are designer, product managers on your team, but there's engineers, engineering leads, QA. There's many people involved in your team. So ensuring that everyone is involved throughout the process is really crucial. I know it's something that it's been said multiple times, but this also stays true for the workshops. Making sure that they're invited, and when they see that their voice is heard and they have their opinions can be brought to the table as well, usually creates engagement, and everyone leaves the workshop way more engaged with the project and with the problem you're solving than before. That's something that we've seen.
Yeah, and Quinn, one thing I would add is sometimes, for example, we're running an OKR workshop right now, and a lot of our team doesn't know what maybe an OKR is or what is a good OKR. And so the way that we've mitigated that is we send out a pre-read ahead of time. So people have to do their homework, and that's where you would get through some of the shared language and terminology ahead of the meeting. If you don't want to, you can also do that in the workshop as like the intro, but it depends on how much time you want to spend with the team on that.
What is the best number of participants for those workshops? Katie, you want to take a stab on it?
Honestly, we've run some of these with 3 to 5 people, and sometimes we've included our entire team, which has 15 to 20. And so, of course, when there's 15 to 20, there's just fewer people talking, but you still get that alignment aspect, and we'll record it for everybody else. But I do think maybe above 20 people is when it starts to get a little bit too big. So we've stuck between 3 and 24 hours.
Yeah, and I would say for the team norms, the first one, it was probably closer to 20, and half of the people were in a meeting room, half were remote, more or less. But the fact that we left time for everyone individually to write their post-its and then come back and discuss a team basically made it work pretty well. But I agree with Katie, like somewhere 20 tops, more or less, is usually a good number. Because these workshops work across the whole company, or is it specific towards creative developer teams? I can start. I would say that depends on the mini workshop. For example, the team norms can easily be used across the whole company, right? This is about how we interact and collaborate with each other. So I actually think it would be really beneficial and healthy at a company level to run something like this. Of course, if you have more people involved, it starts getting more complex to run it. And The best part of it is just to do it with the people that you're actually working with every day. But if you have a startup that you have 10, 15 people, absolutely. Like most of these workshops, they should be run with the whole company probably.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Kitty, you want to take this one?
Yeah, the question is, what's the key difference between this workshop and retro, and how often should this be conducted? I'm not sure which this workshop is referring to. Maybe, Nicholas, do you have any? Do you think?
No, but
I
I guess
think, yeah, I guess maybe I'll try to guess, and maybe it's the prioritization workshop. But I think it really depends. Each team runs retrospectives completely differently, and so it depends on what your retro is doing. Are you, using it to look back on your latest release? Is it on a feature that you built, or is it on like how is your health as a team? And so I would say we've run our watch party workshops after every single time we've released something. We've also run our prioritization workshop after we've collected user research interviews or have done a watch party. And so that's the ritual that we've created.
that sounds about right. So Anthony asked, how could these workshops be adapted to a consultation setting? For example, trying to assess a potential client design organization. I think that's a great question. Depending on the workshop, you could try to run it as a contractor or a consultant, which is going to give you a really good view or sense of the problems or the product that the company is going through. For example, the team norms one, as a consultant, you can run it with someone, and you can, if you're trying to help them, like basically set better communication process and collaboration process, it's going to give you a sense of what things are working for them, but which ones are not. That could easily give you a good idea of where should be focusing on. Likewise, if you're going to be supporting them and taking decisions on what they should be working on next, maybe you can help them run a watch party and say, hey, grab all your user research, let's create some videos out of it and run a watch party. And that's also going to help you as a consultant and as a team assess where the biggest problems are. Katie, you want to take this one?
How many Rajesh is asking, how many leads should there be maximum in a workshop? We've run our workshops, I would say, with 1 to 3 leads to help facilitate. And I think that's worked really well. So I have run some on my own. I run a lot with Nicolas, and he's also run a lot. We've also added our engineering manager to help us with some of these. And so I think that's depending on the size of the group, maybe if it's larger, you can have more people. But with the 20, we even had only 2 people facilitate as a lead. So that's what we recommend.
Yep. And maybe for the sake of time, let's answer one more question, and then we're going to flash the links again. So make sure everyone get access to the materials at the end. Last question from Roshan. Are there any disadvantages to running these workshops in the traditional wall and post-it notes style instead of using Miro? Absolutely not. Like if everyone's in the same room and you want to run it live, just grab the template and translate it to a wall. Totally support that. The goal of our mini workshops and the way we're writing them is to make sure that anyone can run it with a distributed team, but also in an office setting or some mix in between. So this could work in any way. What I would say, though, personally, is having it in Miro, it's great because anyone can exit after. You can easily copy paste stuff around, and it's usually easier to maintain or like read and copy paste stuff compared to a photo of a wall. But I personally support doing this at the office as well. Cool. Awesome. So here are the links again. Again, these are the 3 mini workshops that we went through today. You get the Product Cookbook link on the left, and you can leave comments or ask questions there as well, and the templates on the right. Cool. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.